Hey, I'm Lorelei, registered dietitian nutritionist. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I wanted to show you how to make seitan, which is a vegetarian or vegan meat substitute that is made from wheat, specifically from the protein found in wheat, which is gluten. Now you can buy seitan at the store. A lot of people will make it from vital wheat gluten, which has already been extracted from the wheat. But today I wanted to show you how to make it from just all-purpose flour, because I think sometimes that's just easier to get your hands on. So that's what I've got today, is just plain white flour in my little bin here. And we're gonna measure out 4 cups of flour. Level it off if you want to, but it's not gonna be a perfect, precise.
Making bread?
I'm making seitan.
That's something you can make? I thought it like grew out of the ground.
It's made from wheat gluten.
So this is like
Now I've lost count.
this is like nutrition alchemy. Like how to make nutrition gold.
What would you consider nutrition gold? You can't eat gold though, so...
Double gluten and trouble. Wheaty make stuff. Seitan bubble. Does the seitan magician come in and go, wee?
No, the dietitian comes in and adds water to the flour.
I think you should call yourself a dietitian magician though.
Can just magically take the calories out of food and make it taste delicious.
That would be awesome. You just make it taste delicious and be good for you. That's
Ooh.
Dietitian magician stuff.
I am a dietitian magician.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because it's healthy doesn't mean it's not supposed to taste good.
This is true.
It actually doesn't require a magician, but if you say I'm a magician, that's what I am. Do you want to help?
No, but I want to observe.
You want to
I want to learn your secrets.
Okay, so we've got 4 cups of flour, I think. Were you counting as I was measuring?
No.
Okay, 4 cups of flour, and we're gonna add water. So we're gonna add in the water.
Extra poofy flour.
Yeah.
It's very poofed.
No, it's just regular all-purpose white flour. I've done this before with wheat flour, and that's, I think, often what you see in a recipe, but you're gonna basically just remove all the fiber anyway, so I figure why not just go with white flour, because it's easier to find. Sometimes it's cheaper.
I'm counting cups.
Oh, thank you, thanks. Yeah, that might be enough too. It might be too much even.
Is it going to explode?
I don't think it's gonna explode, but it might be too much. I should have started with 1.5.
How do we take out the water?
Oh,
dietitian magician alert!
Like,
We
get a
need
straw!
Phone a friend! Phone a friend!
Get a straw! This may have been too much water, but one thing we can do is add more flour. There's only 2 ingredients. If you find that it's too thick, you can add more water. If you find that it's too thin, you're gonna add more flour, but you wanna be able to knead it like you would knead a dough. So I'm gonna mix this up and kind of see where we're at. I started with 2 cups of water and 4 cups of flour. We'll see which one we need more of. Actually, it looks pretty good. Once it's sort of a ball, I'm gonna put it onto the counter. My counter, I just cleaned it, so it is clean. And I'm gonna flour this so that it's a little easier to knead. And that way, sometimes this flour, if it needs to get incorporated, it will. You're gonna get your hands dirty for this one. Go ahead and pour that dough out. And it's already kind of a dough, but it has not come together at all. And really what we need to do is have it come together. So we're gonna knead like crazy. So gluten is a protein that is found in wheat. It is also found in other grains such as rye and barley. And it's actually a group of proteins. So the main gluten proteins in wheat are glutenin and gliadin. Gluten is basically kind of a network that forms when you knead together a dough. And that's what holds bread together so that it stays, you know, a solid mass, and then it rises and the air can move in around the gluten and it creates a lot of structure. So what we're looking to do is create that gluten structure here by kneading the dough, and then we're gonna remove the starch, which is a lot of what is in flour, but if we remove it, we will be left with just this web of protein, and that is what seitan is made out of. Just keep on kneading. You want to knead for, I would say, at least 10 minutes, maybe more, until it's really sticking together. You could also do this in a mixer. If you have a mixer with a dough hook on it, that would do the same thing, but you know, sometimes it's fun to knead by hand, and I know not everyone has a fancy schmancy mixer. There are lots of different kneading techniques. Use what works for you. Once you've kneaded for a long time, you end up with kind of a smooth, elastic dough. This actually did take a lot of extra flour, so I probably added a little too much liquid in the beginning. And then we can actually give it a little bit more time to just sit before we start to get the starch out. Ooh, sticky. It's not gonna rise like bread because there's no yeast in it, but the gluten strands will, again, just pull tighter together. Okay, so the next stage after the kneading and the gluten development is we gotta rinse out the starch. So basically, we're gonna be washing this dough.
You gotta wash that starch right out of the dough. You gotta wash that starch right out of the dough.
That's right. I'm not done yet. I'm still washing the starch out.
I know, I just sang a song about that.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you knew that already. I'm gonna let you take over. You know this whole thing.
Okay, my hands aren't clean. I'm gonna mind it though. So,
okay.
We're gonna wash that starch right out of the dough and send Joe on his way.
I'll send you on your way.
Thank you.
Thanks for the song.
You got it.
So you can see right away this water's getting really cloudy. This is staying together. So that's the starch coming out of the dough. If your gluten is well developed, it will stick together, even though at some point it might feel like you're just gonna wash the whole mess right down the drain. You will not. So I'm gonna dump this water and we'll brush it on up. This is where this may start to seem like a slightly wasteful process because we are throwing out all of the starch that was in the flour. If you were to buy gluten, which has the starch already removed in the store, there's going to be some waste there as well. And it's probably going to be a lot more expensive than you're going to spend on the white flour, even though you're getting rid of a lot of the white flour. It's so slick and slippery. It really is an interesting process. It is a process, but it's kind of a fun one. We're unearthing the protein and keeping that. There are definitely some people who are allergic to gluten. So if you have celiac disease, you do not want to be eating gluten. This is not a recipe for you. Some people are sensitive to gluten or they're sensitive to wheat and it just doesn't sit well for them. So again, this probably isn't a good option for you. But on the whole, wheat and gluten are perfectly healthy foods. Gluten is not innately bad. It in fact is a protein and it is a good source of protein. Especially for vegetarians. If you're a vegetarian, and I am vegetarian, you have opted out of some protein sources. So it's good to find other ones to replace it. We're just gonna keep washing this, and this is gonna take a bunch of washes. You wanna keep washing until the water that you put in the bowl becomes clear. You gotta kind of squeeze it, rinse it back and forth. It takes a little time. Did you know that there's about 4 grams of protein in a 1/4 cup of flour? We think of flour as being mostly a starch, a carbohydrate. But if there's 4 grams of protein in a 1/4 cup of flour, well, and we've used 4 cups of flour, that ends up being like 64 grams of protein we can potentially get out. And we're removing, probably not 100% of the starch, but we're removing a good amount of it. So it does become a really good source of protein. As you wash, the dough will become less smooth and more like kind of raggedy, almost like a sponge. Just keep going. Make sure it holds together though, so try not to pull the pieces apart because that would be breaking the gluten strands. Eventually, when you squeeze it, the water stays almost clear, just a tiny bit of cloudiness. And that means we've gotten most of the starch out. This volume has reduced dramatically. So there's a lot less here than there was to start with, but what remains is this rubbery, stuck together mass of gluten. This is our protein. Kind of like brains. So here's the deal. At this point, this stuff has like zero flavor. It's interesting, it's curious, but we need to cook it and we need to flavor it. If you are making seitan using vital wheat gluten, which I know a lot of people do, it's actually pretty common to see that done, you can add seasonings because you're not rinsing the starch out because the starch is already gone. But we couldn't add any seasonings to this because when we rinsed the starch, we would have just rinsed all the flavorings off. But we can cook them in there, and this stuff is super absorbent. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna use some miso, but you may not have miso. If you can't find vital wheat gluten, the chances of you being able to locate some miso may be also slim. You could use a vegetable stock. You can just use some spices if you want to, or you can even just boil it now and wait for later when you're preparing a dish to season it then. It does need to be cooked though, so we can get that gluten to hold together a little more. Boiling water on the stove. I'm gonna add probably a tablespoon or two of miso paste. Water's boiling. I'm gonna put this in. Some people would wrap this in cheesecloth and kind of tie it up to contain it and make it like a loaf shape, but I'm not super worried about it. It's gonna hold together, and if it's just kind of flat and blobby, it's okay because I'm gonna cut it up anyway. You can also steam seitan, and that's what often people will do if they make it from vital wheat gluten because it's already got flavorings in there. But because I want it to pick up the flavoring from the broth, I'm actually gonna put it right down into the liquid and let it cook up to an hour. I might do a little less than that, but we'll see. We'll check on it. Ooh, go on in. Okay, so the seitan is done. Wow. It actually puffed up a lot. It absorbs a lot of the liquid there. So it was tiny when we put it in. But now, ah, there we have some seitan.
It looks like a deflated brain.
Yeah, I would agree actually. It's wheat meat. It's not brains, it's the protein of the wheat. I'll show you what it looks like inside.
Is this like a medical show you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
I can do better.
I'm separating
Don't
the
cut my
hemispheres.
brain. I can't feel my left leg.
It's kind of like there's little holes inside and stuff, space between the gluten strands.
No, I don't want to taste it. There's no flavor to it.
There's a little bit of miso that was cooked into it. And then I recommend you can put it in a stir fry, you can put it in a soup. A lot of people do like barbecued seitan, so a really good sauce. Yeah, like a peanut sauce would be really good with this.
All about the sauce, about the sauce, about the sauce.
Yep, and that's gonna have to be another video. It's very squishy, spongy, springy, kind of. You wanna taste it?
No.
Okay, that's fine. It's chewy.
Makes you smarter if you eat it, because it's a brain.
You have interesting ideas about how food works. There's no flavor in it now. It's all about the texture, and it's full of protein, and it now has the ability to absorb flavor, so you can enjoy it in all sorts of meals. Yep. That's fun. If you have a favorite way to prepare or cook with seitan, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it.
Don't tell Lorelei, but I'm here to tell you the truth. Seitan is an alien fungus that the ships have seeded here to support their crews when they crash land. Be very careful when using this meat substitute.
Everyone wants to be a magician, right? So be a dietitian magician for your own self. What do you think of my hair? She cut it. It's a quarantine cut.
I do the best I can with what I've got.
I think it looks good.
Good.
Good job.